and that concerns the PSX Pakistan's situation as far as economy is concerned, and the upward rally at the PSX, where around 11 in the morning it was at 81,058.74, which is an increase of 492.54 points or 0.61%. The market has remained generally optimistic regarding the macroeconomic recovery and the government's ability to ink a new international monetary fund program. Fresh liquidity potentially after the IMF agreement and further rate cuts should help extend the rally. This is what the major sentiment as far as Pakistan's economic outlook vis-a-vis the Pakistan Stock Exchange is concerned. And a lot of people say that what Pakistan Stock Exchange reflects is also more or less a reflection of Pakistan's security economic paradigm and the Pakistan's economic outlook as far as what is going to happen in the next couple of weeks or months, and also the investor sentiment that is present in Pakistan. Now, to discuss that and more, we've been joined by two guests. Our first guest is in the studios. He's Fahd Waheed, Senior Vice President of the ICCI. Fahd, thank you very much to have joined us. And online, we've also been joined by Dr. Usman Chohan, our leading political economist. Usman, thank you very much to have joined us. Pleasure to have you here, and I see the beard. Let's begin with you, Fahd. Equities at the PSX have maintained an upward trajectory. The KSC crosses the 81,000. We had never thought a couple of months back that the PSX would be crossing 80,000, leave alone 81,000. Now, what do you attribute this historical high to?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that this shows a lot of confidence of overseas Pakistanis in the investments they have made in the stock exchange. Secondly, the local investor. Yes, one of the major key players here. We have to understand there's only 523 companies that are listed at the stock exchange in Pakistan, and this is basically the outcome of these, I would say, bittersweet gulps that we've taken as economy in the past 2 years. Having said that, IMF has led this program with us that we're going to sign now, and that's a good thing. At this point in time, we've made all these structural reforms that we've been talking about for a long time, but this government stays adamant on the part where they want to take these steps and initiatives forward and continue the policy. This continuity is showing more stability. When it's showing more stability, automatically it's going to show a bullish environment in the stock exchange. So I think that's a more attributing concept at this point in time, but really and truly it's showcasing our forward, what's going to happen in the future. So this actually is telling you how the investor is feeling at this point. I think it's very favorable at this point. Pakistan is going through 81,000 points is and I actually foresee it that we might hit a new hit tomorrow. Oh yes, because today the environment that I saw in the investors, it was more of let's invest more, let's see where the market is, because the hard times that we've passed through in the last 6 months, the hardest part we had in the economy, I think that's easing it out.
All right.
It's bringing out the benefits.
Let's see. Let's keep our fingers crossed and stay optimistic. Dr. Usman, the index is almost up by 38,851 points. Started its journey by 41,452 and almost increased and kept on increasing and touching this high of 81,058 points. How has the economic performance been, in your point of view, that has led to this continuous rise and never before seen rise as far as the PSX is concerned?
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. I must caution everyone that the stock market is not the economy. Our economy, we still have to do a lot of hard work. And you know what? In the last year and even 2 years, including the caretaker government, a lot of important measures were taken for stabilization. So at least for domestic investors, the stock market looks very, very favorable. And there are some underlying moving parts of our equity markets that make it especially attractive to domestic and foreign investors, which weren't there for a long time. And Pakistan is in the category of several countries that are benefiting from this shift in the winds, including Argentina as well. And so overall, this category of large frontier markets are going to be significant beneficiaries. So I agree with my colleague that it could rise quite a bit more.
All right. Fahd, coming to you, the market has remained generally optimistic. This is what you were also telling me as far as the investor sentiment is concerned. What about the macroeconomic recovery and the government's ability to ink a new deal with the IMF? You also kind of alluded to that. But what also is being said is fresh liquidity potentially after the IMF agreement and further rate cuts could help extend the rally. How can these two factors, that is fresh liquidity and rate cuts, extend the rally?
See, what we've been witnessing from the past 2 years is, stuck up money. The capital's been jammed in real estate investments, in imports and everything. But that being said, that money has to liquidate. Once the fresh equity comes in, usually it's going to come in from foreign direct investment, the FDIs. And I think SIFC is one of the best things that's happening to Pakistan at this point. In the past 1.5 years, we've seen that SIFC has been very effectively bringing investments into Pakistan, and that's showing more stable environment for the foreign investor. So once this money is injected in the economy, it's going to start circulating, and circulation brings in more money. So that's the basic underlying cause. That's why this is happening. On the other part of it, privatization is happening. So that is showing a lot of confidence in different businesses and different areas. It's going to open up a new era of businesses for a lot of people. Similarly, if we talk about PIA, we talk about the trains, we talk about the steel industry itself, because that's also on the list now. And all these things, when these things privatize, they're going to bring in more money. More money means, easy access. So easy access means, more confidence builder. So everybody that's looking at Pakistan at this point in time, especially at the CPEC zone as well, because now that's also a kickstarter for Pakistan. It's been shut down for almost 4 years, but now it's back on track, and that's a good thing about Pakistan. That even though we've had these lapses, we're still recovering. We're still recovering. We're recovering better than we were supposed to be. So that's something I am optimistic about, because as a Pakistani, we've seen we're a very resilient nation. And we're going to stop this brain drain. We're going to stop this, flight of capital from Pakistan, and I see it happening.
All right, inshallah, inshallah. Dr. Usman, market capitalization is almost up by 4,052 billion. The index in dollar terms is up by nearly 15 billion US dollars, with a market cap reaching 37 billion US dollars, up by 61%. What are the macroeconomic or microeconomic indicators behind this bullish drift?
It's a very important point. On the foreign investor side, emerging markets have not been attractive lately. And I'm not counting Pakistan in that. I'm counting like Mexico and Brazil. That money has gone back into the US following this AI boom. And that's why stocks like Nvidia are through the roof, because this AI craze, which is a bubble, is drawing out of emerging markets. But at the same time, the investors said, okay, what other than the US should we be investing in? And the answer is the frontier markets, because they had been battered so badly over the last 3 years that it was not a realistic portrayal. So that money has gone into frontier markets such as Pakistan and Argentina. So the frontier market index is shooting up, and Pakistan is a distinctly large frontier market, because it really should be an emerging market, right? So that is one on the foreign side. On the domestic side, we talked about the IMF agreement. It's been an ongoing conversation. I think that's a good one. But when you speak of capitalization, we have to look at the earnings. So capitalization is the number of stock times the price, basically. But the earnings are still very undervalued. There's a lot of room to grow up. So historically, it's about 7 times earnings to price in our stock market, which is still very low by global standards. But right now, even with this rally, it's trading at about 4 times the earnings. So even from our history, you have a very large room to expand from 4 times to 7 times multiple. And then after that, probably as these earnings become more concrete and we start to see even more reform, then perhaps we're talking about more normalized larger multiples than 7, 10 times, 11 times, and so on. So even in capitalization, there's not. And when you look at the composition of our stock market, the banking sector has a very large component of that. And they're having, any bank you pick, record profit quarter after quarter, every quarter. So there's a bit of a distortion there that the banking earnings are very, very large. And as my colleague correctly said, other asset classes now are not as attractive. As interest rates go down, fixed income will not be as attractive, equities will be attractive, and the real estate market is essentially dead. You can't find buyers for stuff, so people want to pull out and put their money in something that's far more liquid. So after cash and gold, it is equities. That is a good place. So there's multiple moving parts to what I see in our equity markets right now.
Which is a huge shift from a couple of years back, where real estate was the thing in which to invest. But of course, the investor sentiment is changing, and so is the basic drift as far as where to invest in and how to invest in is concerned. Fahd, international credit agencies, rating agencies such as Moody's and Fitch make a positive forecast for the program between Pakistan and the IMF, because they say that the budget is in line with the IMF conditionalities, which promoted a positive trend in the market. How important has this budget been as far as the upcoming IMF program is?
I think it's one of the major components, because setting a line of the next year, how the outlook is going to be for the next year, is very important when it comes to lenders' confidence. So IMF has to have this confidence in Pakistan when we talk about structural reforms, when we talk about how are we going to collect all this money that we owe. So those things are going to come in line. So I think we're doing it right. At this point in time, Pakistan is doing it right. Our foreign minister is doing a good job, because he's identifying all those loopholes that have been there for a long time, and now they're working as one unit. So that was the
finance minister.
Yes, the finance minister. So I think that was the mostly what we needed at this point. So yes, this is very important. The budget was very important. I do understand, we have problems. We've had problems in the past, but this is how we're going to be a better nation. And I think, back in 2017, we were supposed to come into the G20, but we didn't. But it's never too late to be in the G20. So I think we're on track. The numbers are right. They look right. The last year's numbers for FBR collection was done right. So I think we're actually climbing the ladder in the right side.
All right. That's wonderful news, and I hope that this trend keeps on going in the right direction. Dr. Usman, have steps such as downward inflation, such as interest rates trajectory and flows converting from fixed income to equities that you alluded as well, help stocks rise in Pakistan?
Absolutely, because typically an investor has a certain portfolio of asset classes to look at, and real estate, as was said before, was certainly the most attractive for a long time. But since it is moribund and you can't really find buyers or sellers in that market, you have to look at other things. Now, cash itself depreciating, gold is a bit of a mixed bag, so you are really left with either fixed income or equities. And fixed income has been very, very good in Pakistan for the last 2 years because of an extortionary interest rate. Now the central bank is finally realizing that it has to bring it down as global inflation also comes, as the US Fed also lowers rates. That makes this fixed income a special scenario that we had less attractive. And what you can do is, if the banks are not getting the same cut that they used to from high interest rates, it's slightly lower, they're still giving those dividends out. So you still can make a good investment through the banking sector via the equity side, because the dividend yield is still very, very attractive. So I think that the equities is a clear case among all the portfolios. I myself should have invested in it, but I keep in mind that I expect Pakistan to do more on its reform side. So the case for this, I think that stock market is very sentiment driven also. So I personally haven't invested in it, and I wouldn't give investment advice like that. But there is certainly, we must acknowledge, room for the stock market multiple to expand, at least to double what it is, to just be in line with its history.
All right, wonderful. Fahd, the tax to GDP ratio has stood at 9% during the year 2023-2024. This is a report that has come out by the FBR. This report talks about revenue forecasting for this current year. It says the tax GDP ratio remained in the range of 8.7% to 9.2%. Last year, this ratio was 8.5%, and then of course it started improving and stood at 9%. It also, the report talks about traditional methodology that has been adopted to forecast FBI revenues for this upcoming year, and it talks about an increase of 1,922 billion forecast for the year 2024-2025 to arrive at an expected revenue collection of 11,174 billion. How do you view this methodology that the FBR has applied working in Pakistan's favor? Do you feel this is a realistic approach?
I think it's a very ambitious approach at this time, because the tax culture that we've been trying to promote from the past 15 years, it's not really actually happening. So we need to actually give more awareness out to our taxpayers, to the, I would say, potential taxpayers that, still have to come into the tax net. Yes, we've been talking a lot about broadening the tax net, yes, but we're really not taking the right measures for it. Okay. There was one scheme that just came out, it's called the Tajir Do scheme, and that's supposed to, target all the traders that are not in the tax net. They're supposed to come in that. I think that's a good thing happening at this point, because one of their coordinators is also from the business community. So those key points and those coordination points, if given to the right stakeholders, that can improve a lot in tax collection. But if we're not going to give much more awareness to our taxpayers of how to pay their taxes and when they're due, how to do that, that's going to be a lapse. On the contrary, I did make a statement on 7 billion being put for FBR reforms, but I think it's for the betterment of FBR, because they're going to digitize the methods, and more documentations mean more taxes.
I think this was something that was decided in the caretaker government.
Yes, and I think this continuity shows that the government is actually interested in bringing in stability. So the next thing I would expect from FBR would be a steady increase in taxes, not a steep but a steady increase in
I think
taxes.
that's very important. Do you feel the revenue target, Dr. Usman, that has been projected by the FBR for the year 2024-2025 is at 11,174 billion, which is 20.8% higher than the collection figure of 9,254 billion for 2023-2024, can be achieved?
It can. But we are putting so much pressure on the FBR to deal with taxation, whereas in fact, Pakistan's taxation system requires much more provincial work. That is because the federation is the revenue raising unit, but the provinces are the spending units, and this is a huge mismatch. Actually, the provinces should be raising taxes directly, and they should be doing it through things like property tax. And for that, you have to actually survey your cities and your towns and get things right at the provincial level. Otherwise, you have this one center building, this one FBR that is expected to deal with 25 crore taxpayers. It's not a reasonable thing. So I think we're very unfair to the FBR, and we have to actually restructure fiscal federalism to make sense that the provinces do their legwork rather than expect the manna and quail to come from the center and then spend it in God knows what way. And I think that this federation system has to be looked at carefully. Otherwise, the FBR cannot do as much as is expected for it, given the targets that IMF sets year after year and program after program. So we have to think seriously on that front.
All right, Fahd, it is being said that the investors are optimistic. You've also told me that about the macroeconomic stability that will create a favorable environment for monetary easing. Also that this will subsequently reduce the required rate of return for investors in the equity market. It is also being indicated that the scarcity of profitable investment opportunities that is present currently, particularly in real estate and commodities, is also driving the KSE 100 rally. Do you agree with these statements?
I do agree with this statement at this point, because what's happening is, real estate industry, specifically when you mentioned that, I have to shed some light on this. Real estate industry has been stuck up for a year and a half now, because the investment that was supposed to be in there and the return that was supposed to be, it's not there, and there's not much liquidity in the market.
Okay.
So what's happening is, at this point, everybody's looking for new avenues. Just like my colleague said, it's still happening in the market. So the next 4 months are going to decide if this is the right track. But at this point, everybody's thinking, and all the investors are looking at the optimistic level, that this is going to improve, and the next 4 to 6 months, we're going to see a very sharp increase in investments in Pakistan other than real estate. So that's going to be, I think, it's a very optimistic statement at this point.
All right. Let's hope it stays optimistic and we continue on that trajectory. Dr. Usman, Pakistan more or less stands on a different kinds of crossroads, but the fiscal year 2024-25 budget is being seen as an opportunity that can be used for course correction. Do you feel that this year's financial outlay addresses the most pressing issues to ignite hopes for a brighter and more sustainable Pakistan? Because Pakistan has been, has seen all the effects of climate change, all the other effects, and wherein Pakistan is not a major emitter at all. Do you feel the indicators are showing that Pakistan is moving in the right direction when it comes to sustainable development?
This is a very difficult question, because it is people like you and I who are going to bear the brunt of the reforms that are being taken as salaried people. And in fact, the way our structured economy works, it is not reasonable for us to keep giving out so much in taxes. And it's not a pro-growth way to approach things, this austerity measure. So as far as reforms are done, I think they were easy pickings, or the low-hanging fruit, which is you and me. And I think that there are vested interests in our economy that are taking up far too much and giving far too little. And so there's only so far you can go in squeezing the salaried class or other people. And this is a general sentiment that if you have the courage to truly take reforms, this would not be how you go about it. But for now, the IMF is satisfied. Therefore, we are continuing to trudge along. I don't believe, given Pakistan's immense potential, that trudging along is the target we should have, because we should be a really amazing economy. But for that, you have to be a little bit fairer to the little guy like you and me and tackle the big guy a little bit in terms of the size of participation in the economy.
All right. Coming to you, Fahd, there have been different IMF statements as far as Pakistan's trajectory or the different methodology that is used to improve its economy is concerned. But in your point of view, this is what I'm trying to ask. What methodology needs to be applied to strengthen public finances through fairer taxation? And how can we generate income and cut down on expenditures to reduce the budget deficits? And how, in your point of view, can we bring about fine fiscal policies, like, for example, broadening the tax base, which is a huge question mark, without imposing any new tax or increasing the rate of the existing taxes and improving the tax to GDP?
I think the last part of the question is the most relevant, how not to have more taxes and still be able to, broaden the tax. And I think that's something, we have to work out. The FBR has to now actually go down and pinpoint all those areas they've been lacking at, because there's a huge chunk of people that are not paying taxes in Pakistan, and we need to target those. And that's the reason why the upper class and the middle class are being suppressed by these extra burden of taxes. So once we have all these people in net, then these burdens are going to be less. Of course, the worthier they are, the more taxes they're going to pay. That's how progressive taxation works. But that being said, we also need to understand the public finances need to be handled, right? So the austerity measures, I didn't see them in this budget, and I'm still waiting to, understand why this is not happening, because we are spending more than what we are doing. So on the other end of it, privatization is a big and major part of it, because these assets, the SEOs, the state-owned entities that we have, these are spending way more than they're supposed to be, and they're in losses. So that's the area that we can actually plug out. So we're bleeding out of it. So we need to stop the bleeding. We need to start working right. So once we have in air the PIA, then we can go after the railways, then we can go after all these assets that are not money making for us.
Right.
I think tourism is also part of it. And all these are going to consume to a part where you're going to create more money. Once we have more income, then we can start spending the way we want to.
All right.
But at this point, austerity is something we need to take care of.
Thank you very much, Fahd Waheed, Senior Vice President of the ICCI, to have joined us. Thank you very much, Dr. Usman Chohan, a leading political economist, to have joined us. I hope next time I'll see you in the studio instead of online. But nevertheless, thank you very much to have joined us. Let's come to our last two stories. The first concerns the death anniversary of Muhtarma Fatima Jinnah. Madre Millat Muhtarma Fatima Jinnah's death anniversary, 57th death anniversary, is being observed today with great respect, with great reverence. She was born in Karachi on the 31st of July in 1893 and played a vital role in the creation of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. She worked side by side with her brother Muhammad Ali Jinnah and gathered the women of the subcontinent on one platform, which made the struggle of achieving a separate state of Muslims easier. And she left us for a higher abode on this very day in 1967. She is laid to rest right next to her brother Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Finally, there is one planet that smells like rotten eggs. A faraway planet known for its dire weather also whiffs of rotten eggs, as per a new study. Now, scientists who have studied the atmosphere of the planet HD 1897733b, which has scorching temperatures and precipitation skin to raining glass, is using data from the James Webb Space Telescope, and this data shows that the smell that emanates from that planet is like that of rotten eggs. Just see and imagine the immense scope of the telescope such as the James Webb Telescope that gives us an insight on planets that are so far away, and will continue to give us new insights into how the universe is working. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we end today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to you, us and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.